Hi, I'm Scott Derrickson. I'm the director of Sinister. I think that horror films are really important things, for audiences who pay to go see them. I think that horror films are great ways of confronting the things that we're afraid of, and people need to feel afraid in a safe environment. And seeing a good horror film can be a very cathartic experience that can release fear and can make us face things that we normally don't face, fears that we normally don't face, and therefore hopefully make us more equipped to deal with fear in the real world. The idea came from my writing partner, Cargill, who had a nightmare after he saw The Ring. And he had a nightmare, and in his nightmare he went up into his attic and found a box of Super 8 films. And he put the first one on a projector, and it was a family being hung. So that was, all in his nightmare. And he kind of created a little story, what he thought would be a good story for a movie. And I ran into him in Las Vegas, and he pitched me the idea. I thought it was great, and I sold it the next week, and a year later we made the movie. The Exorcist, The Shining, and The Changeling.
Don't you think that people might find it disturbing for children to be involved that much in the movie? I mean, even if they are portrayed as being manipulated, they are nevertheless the actors of the crimes.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
I found it truly disturbing.
And a good horror film is disturbing. It's the same thing with Rosemary's Baby, which is about a evil baby. Or remember the kid in The Shining? Did you see The Shining?
Yeah.
That's got an evil kid, and so does The Omen.
Yes.
And how about The Exorcist? How about what they do to that girl? That's very disturbing. So I think that we haven't seen it in a while. And so for somebody your age, it's not something you're accustomed to going into a theater and seeing, so it's probably very shocking. But for somebody who's my age, the best horror films that I ever saw growing up all had an evil kid in them.
And why do you think children are often part of horror movies?
I think because they represent innocence,
Yes.
and they are innocence in human culture, and so to see them in peril is very disturbing. To see them seduced or corrupted into becoming something that is evil is very upsetting. And I also think that it instinctively brings us back to our own childhood and the things that made us afraid when we were kids. The presence of a child in a horror film can do all three of those things, and sometimes all three at the same time, which is why most of the best horror films I've ever seen. You asked me what my 3 favorite horror films are, and they all have a child at the center of the story.
What are your secrets for creating these moments which stir the spectator, which cause a feeling of uneasiness or something?
I think the simple answer is that I look for things that create that feeling in myself. I think some horror directors don't do that. I think some horror directors like to direct horror because they like to try to manipulate the audience, and I'm not really trying to do that. I'm trying to find things that I find disturbing, and that make me uneasy. And if it makes me uneasy and if it disturbs me, then I think it will probably make the audience even more disturbed and uneasy, because I'm not easy to disturb. But if it doesn't scare me, I don't know why I should expect it to scare the audience. I do celebrate Halloween because I have kids, and this also gets to your question about kids, and it's like some people have asked me, was it hard to have kids on the set and making the movie? It's like, no, they loved it. Halloween's a holiday for children, and that they love to get dressed up and be scared and go trick or treating and all of that. But scary movies are what adults have at Halloween time. They have scary films to go see. So, yeah, I like scary movies at Halloween season, and I like to celebrate Halloween with my kids very much.
For me, to conclude, why do you personally think that people should watch your movie?
I think people should watch my movie if they like being scared. If they like going to horror films. If you don't like horror films, you shouldn't see it. But that's not true either. If you like good films, I think the reason why is because it's not a cheap horror film. It's not a it's not a gory movie. You know, it's not a movie where you're watching on-screen violence. It's psychological. It is very scary, but I think more importantly, it's got real characters in it, and it's got important moral ideas in it. You know, it's really a film about ambition and selfish ambition, and I think there's a lot to the movie on both an entertainment level and on an artistry level. You know, and that's the kind of horror film I like to see that we don't get very often. So that's why I think people should go see it.
Ambition is what led Ethan to his doom, then.
Yeah, you know, and ambition's maybe too simple of a, you know, of an explanation. I mean, to me, what I love about the movie is that, like all horror films, it's about fear. You know, and he's experiencing great fear. He's afraid of the films he's seeing because they're scary. He's afraid of the paranormal things that are happening around his house because that's scary. But there's a more powerful fear that drives everything he does, which is his fear of losing his status, his fear of not regaining his fame and fortune, his fear of not being important anymore. That fear is why he stays in the house. That fear is why he lies to his wife. That fear is why he doesn't turn the films over to the police when he should. You know, and that's a very relatable fear. We all have fear of not being important. We all want to matter more. We all want to be perceived as important, and we all want more status. And his fear of not having his amazing status that he had after he wrote his first bestseller is what is the strongest fear in the movie. And that, to me, is what it's about. And that's why when his daughter films him just before killing him, so she says, "Don't worry, Daddy, I'll make you famous again." You know, it's what the movie's about.
Okay, thank you.